Well, as you can see, it's been a fun morning here. I waded through this creek this morning about 100 yards and picked one of these maple trees on the edge of it to blow my wind across. I'll obviously go out the same way. I wanted to talk quick about just access in general. It's something that I think about nonstop when it comes to my hunting locations, whether that's a stand location or even a food plot. A lot of times I'll design a food plot around access too. But it's such a key part. I would argue that it's probably the most important factor in consistently having good deer encounters and obviously being able to kill them. When I say access, I mean entry and exit. Sometimes that exit factor gets forgotten about, but it's just as important not to spook deer leaving your hunting spot as it is coming in. And to take that a step further, it's just as important to not spook them well after you're gone either, with your scent, whatever your residual scent is. So if you're walking across spots where there's tall vegetation rubbing up on everything, you may not spook a deer or know you spook a deer. While you're going out, may not see anything. But if your target buck comes across that, a couple hours later or, later that night, that can sometimes do just as much damage. So being able to utilize, creeks, ditches, various terrain features, if you can keep your scent, like this is perfect. I'm not going to leave any scent getting out of here. It's basically just dropped down into the creek, and as you can tell, we've got a bunch of water. It was everything my chest waders had to not go over the top. But it's just bulletproof when you can do that and basically dropping off this bank. And not all stand locations are going to have perfect access, but it's something you have to think about. Even a situation like this, I could have hunted over on the other side, easy to access, and just not went in very far. But thinking about how I could utilize the creek, even though it's pretty high right now, how can I use the creek to get into a better location? I could probably think of hundreds of examples over the years where my access was key. A lot of bucks that I've killed have been where my access is so good through a creek or a ditch that had I not done that, there's a good chance I wouldn't have killed those bucks. So like I said, it's something you have to think about before I even pick a hunting location. It's how do I get in? How do I get out? And again, it's not going to be bulletproof every time. If it's not bulletproof, it doesn't mean you can't get in there to hunt. It may have to be the right conditions where you go in, really early before dark and stay all day, so you're not getting down and spooking deer during the daylight hours. Or it may be something where you consider only hunting it during the heart of the rut when you get a calm morning where your thermals are going to help carry your scent, things like that. So don't automatically cross certain spots that are tough to access off the list. It's just you're not going to be able to get away with hunting those spots over and over again like you would a spot like this where it's in and out in the creek. You're not visible, your scent stays down in there, all that type of stuff. Another thing you can consider doing, when it comes to these creeks and ditches for access, utilize the off season to get it cleared out. Noise is another thing. If you're constantly breaking sticks and stuff that have fallen into that ditch, that's not good for going in or out either. So spend some time in the summer, clear out that ditch so it's easy, quiet access. And the other thing too, I should mention, rubber boots, in my experience, go a long ways in minimizing the amount of ground scent you use. As much as you can, like I said earlier, try not to rub up on the vegetation. If the only scent you're leaving is the bottom of your rubber boots, it's very minimal, and I've seen deer not pay attention to that at all. Sometimes it's such a faint smell too that they'll try to kind of trail it, trying to figure it out. But it's when the deer's muzzle height a couple feet off the ground. It's when you're rubbing up on vegetation at that height that's a lot easier for them to pick up. So I like to wear rubber boots, all the time, especially those tougher to access spots that I was referring to. If I can minimize the amount of ground scent I'm using on the way in and the way out, I'm also minimizing the residual damage from that spot and trying to keep that spot as fresh as possible to keep hunting it. So I hope that helps. Just always remember to ask yourself, how am I going to get in? How am I going to get out? If there's questions there, if it's a challenging situation, weigh that risk versus reward. Again, I'm a pretty aggressive hunter, and I'm not saying don't hunt those spots. Just know going into it, it's not going to be a spot. If the access is challenging, either entry or exit, it's not going to be a spot that you're going to be able to hunt over and over again. You're slowly going to build up that burnout of that spot. But sometimes it only takes one hunt, so just think about the access and think about when to hunt those tougher access locations.